11. We're now upstairs. Come this way. We're now in room number 57. There it is in green. There's the artifacts in red. So you just make your way around this way. Follow the map so you can use this when you come back and do it again. Now, let's open page 12. We're in the patriarchal period, 1900 to 1400 BC. So way back time of Abraham. We're in the book of Genesis. Remember, the book of Genesis has been challenged right, left, and center because there's some cataclysmic events that happened in the book of Genesis that should have references that we can look at today to corroborate. And certainly it talks about peoples that most historians have never heard of before. The Horites, no one's ever heard reference to these peoples. The Hittites, no one's heard reference to those people. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, no one's ever heard anybody. There's no reference anywhere to these two cities, or the city of Ur, and especially the person of Abraham himself. Most historians today would suggest that the first 11 chapters of Genesis are nothing more than fiction. And this primarily came out when Wellhausen brought out this challenge in the late 1800s. And it's still been repeated over and over again in most all the universities here in Britain. And I would say here support this theory that much of the book of Genesis is in doubt. Now, what are we going to do to support that? How are we going to know whether these people exist or these places exist? Well, there have been genres of tablets. Tablets have now been discovered. And there have been 4 families of tablets that have now been discovered. The Nuzi tablets that are from the same time period in the same place that Abraham came from Mesopotamia, where he lived. The Mari tablets. If you look on page 12, the Nuzi tablets from 2800 to 1760. This is the same time period that Abraham existed because he lived in 1900 BC. The Mari tablets are those. The Nuzi tablets are, from Mesopotamia from 14 to 1300 BC, just after Abraham. And what's interesting, since they come from the same area, they give us a window into what was happening in that area, in that place. That's why they've been such treasure troves. Maybe if you could come a little bit further closer because we're kind of blocking people going back. We need to pull up just a bit. Let's look at the Mari tablets. The Mari tablets were written between 2800 and 1700 BC, and they were found near northern Iraq called Kirkuk, which is Kirkuk today. Interestingly, they mention King Ariel of Genesis 14. They list the towns of Nahor and Haran in Genesis 24, as well as the names of Benjamin and the people known as the Haberus. Who are these Haberus? Hold on to that. We're going to come back to that. The Nuzi tablets are even more exciting because the Nuzi tablets are the ones that not only talk about the Horites, they actually mention the Horites. The first reference we have to the Horites, proving the Bible is correct. But what's more is they talk about customs from that part of the world that exactly parallel what we find in the Bible. Now remember, what historians suggest is that the Old Testament was probably written in the 5th century BC and redacted back to someone named Moses in 1400 BC. Yet when you look at the Nuzi tablets, look how specific and how close they come to the customs that we see in the Bible. Look at the list that we have at the bottom of page 12. Number 1, that a barren wife was given a handmaiden to her husband. That you find in the story of Hagar in Genesis 16. That a bride is chosen for the son by the father. That's in the story of Rebekah in Genesis 24. That a dowry is paid to the father-in-law is found in the story of Jacob in Genesis 29. Also in Genesis 29, that you can work off the dowry by simply working it off. That you can pay off the dowry by working it off. That there's an unchanging order will of a father is found in the story of Isaac in Genesis 27. That a father can give his daughter a slave girl is found in both the story of Leah and Rachel in Genesis 29. That there's a sentence of death or stealing a coat god is found in the story of Jacob in Genesis 31, and that a man can call his wife his sister is found in both the story of Abraham and Isaac in Genesis 12, Genesis 20, and Genesis 26. Look how specific these customs are. All of these customs went out of date by 1400 BC. So how could someone in the 5th century have known about it? More than that, how could Moses have known about it? Ooh, I love it. He never was in Mesopotamia. He would have not known about any of these customs. They no longer existed when he was living. Yet he gets every custom correct. That's why I love my Bible. But let's talk about these two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. Never referred to anywhere. No one's ever come across them. Well, that would make sense if they were destroyed at the time of Abraham, which, according to the Bible, they were. No wonder no one heard about them. Herodotus, Thucydides, these great historians from the 5th century don't write about any of these cities. Only the Bible suggests these cities existed. And that's why most historians always assume that these were mythological. That was until a mound was discovered in Syria called Tel Mardin. Mound like the one we saw downstairs. And as they started digging down into that Tel, layer after layer after layer, they came to the 2300 BC layer. That's 400 years before Abraham. And they found an entire city that had been abandoned called Ebla. Have any of you remember the city of Ebla in Syria? It's now been uncovered. And they dug away the sands. They came across one house. In that house was one room. On the floor of that room were 17,000 tablets, like you see here. Now, the great thing about tablets is they don't deteriorate. They don't disintegrate. They remain almost as pristine as the day they were fired. These particular tablets were from 1394 BC. The ones we're talking about, the Ebla tablets, were from 2300 BC. As they were looking at these tablets, and as they were translating the cuneiform on them, they came across one tablet that mentions 5 cities: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zebulun, and Zoar. The first and only reference to Sodom and Gomorrah anywhere in the world were found on that tablet, proving that Sodom and Gomorrah did exist in 2300 BC, but not after. That's the beauty of it. But take a look at the sequence: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zebulun, and Zoar. Have you read that before? You should have. Where have you read it? No?
Oh,
No?
in Genesis.
Genesis chapter 14, verse 8. In Genesis chapter 14, verse 8. Those are the 5 cities that Abraham went to protect for Lot. And those are the 5 kings that are written in the exact same order that we find on the Ebla tablets, proving that there's something significant about that order. And we now know what it is. This is known as a trade route. A trade route that started in Sodom, went to Gomorrah, went to Admah, then went to Zebulun, and then finished off in Zoar. But hold on a minute. That trade route did not exist at the time of Moses. How did Moses know to get it in that order? Ooh, I love it. That's why I love my Bible. We don't expect it to be in that order. We don't expect him to get the right cities. He gets the right cities in the right order, yet they were destroyed 500 years before him. No trade route of that existed. And Moses never was in Mesopotamia to even know about such a trade route. Yet he gets the right order, the right cities. Kabano. Now, let's talk about these tablets here. These are known as the Amarna tablets, written by the governor there in Palestine, or in Canaan, writing to the Pharaoh who was in Amarna at that time, the Pharaoh of Egypt, which was the capital of Egypt at that time. He's mentioning in these letters, these tablets, that there are these barbaric people called the Haparu. Ooh, have you heard that before? Remember I told you I was going to come back to it. Who are these Haparu? He mentions that they are stateless people living in the mountains, coming down into the plains and raiding the cities in the plains, but leaving some of the cities alone. What does that parallel? No?
The 12 tribes?
No. Joshua. That exactly parallels the time of Joshua. Remember Joshua coming into Canaan, coming down from the mountains, destroying Jericho, destroying Ai. The Edomites come to him. They have dusty shoes, they have dirty clothes, they've said they've come from a long distance, they said we'd like to have an alliance with you. He agrees to alliance, assuming that they're way in the distance, and here he finds out they're right next door. But he's already created the alliance where he lets them alone, he never attacks their cities. Exactly paralleling what we find in the Amarna letters. The Amarna letters from 1394, that's the time of Joshua. We've got the right man doing the right thing at the right place. Now let's look at what the British Museum, now remember, the British Museum is a secular institution. It is not a religious institution. They are not interested in our Bible at all. But look and see what they say. Let's read what they say. The Amarna letters, they say, make reference to the Haperu, the same people that are found on the Nuzi tablets. Depicted as roving bands of status people, based in the hill country, and conducting raids on cities, these alternate Canaanites form the basis of the biblical Hebrews. Even they are coming to that conclusion. We don't even ask them to come to that conclusion. Why are they coming to that conclusion? Because you got the right people with the right name at the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. It fits the biblical story. That's why they're coming to the same conclusion that we're coming. And if they're going to come to that conclusion, why should we complain? But if they're even willing to write it on their walls, God bless them. Come on over. Now, we're going to get up.